All right, guys. Tim Tszyu against Sebastian Fundora next weekend. And in my opinion, this fight is more exciting than the original main event of Tim Tszyu against Keith Thurman. But having said that, I strongly feel that Tim Tszyu is not only going to win this fight, he's going to win it by KO. And I even think I know the exact punch that he's going to use to get the finish. Now, does that mean the fight itself is going to be boring? And why am I so sure that Tim Tszyu is actually going to be able to get Fundora out of there with a specific shot? Well, if you look at the styles of both fighters, if you look at who they've fought, one thing that jumps off the page right away is that Tim Tszyu is extremely difficult to exchange with successfully on the inside. If you look at almost every single one of his recent opponents, which coincidentally include Brian Mendoza and Ocampo, the last two people that Fundora has fought, almost every single one of those guys had some success at some point actually hitting Tim Tszyu. He's not invincible defensively, and in fact, he's been put down by Goucher in round 1. But here's the thing. In the end, all of those guys, Goucher, Tony Harrison, Ocampo, Mendoza, they were all beaten up physically, and I would go so far as to say he broke them mentally by the time the fight was over. Because Tim Tszyu, even if you can hit him on the inside, he comes forward, he applies relentless pressure. Even if you look at his Commonwealth title fight against Steve Spark, he got hit with uppercuts, he got hit with hooks, he got hit clean on the chin a whole bunch of times in the first round. And this was back in 2021 when he was a lot more raw than what he is now. But the fact is, he was hit and he just keeps coming forward. He imposes his will on the opponents on the inside. He comes forward with relentless pressure. And to me, he has the intangible quality that a lot of the elite athletes in any sport have, which is a chip on his shoulder, a meanness. He's going in there laser focused on not only winning the fight, but knocking his opponent out if at all possible and breaking their will. And that's what makes him such a dangerous competitor and why all of these guys have been able to actually hit him, but they've failed to seriously come close to beating him. So how does this apply to Sebastian Fundora? Well, the thing is, Fundora, despite his height, is a great inside fighter. But the fact is, he doesn't really use his length in the way that you would expect him to. And he's very exciting to watch. But if you look at him against Brian Mendoza, that's really the only time I've ever seen him actually use his jab, come forward, and try and keep his opponent at range without exchanging as much on the inside. I think you can actually look at the Mendoza fight for clues as to what Fundora can have some success, or the areas rather, in which he can have some success against Tim Tszyu. Because if you look at what Tim Tszyu does well, he's a front foot pressure fighter who's very vicious and who does very well on the inside exchanges. So I believe that Sebastian Fundora's best chance to win here is to try and make Tim Tszyu do something that he hasn't had to do really to any serious degree up to this point, which is fight on the back foot. None of his opponents have really made him back up and have to fight off of his back foot. If Sebastian Fundora can do that, which he was able to do a little bit against Brian Mendoza, and he was actually winning the fight by 4 or 5 rounds at the time he got stopped, then I think he can actually have some success against Tim Tszyu. That's his best chance of winning this fight. His height on the inside makes him extremely vulnerable to overhand lefts and overhand rights. And in fact, those are the exact punches that Brian Mendoza was able to use to knock him out when he was way behind on the scorecards. And Tim Tszyu, I expect, is going to be able to have similar success. And that's why I said earlier on, I expect to be able to predict maybe even the exact punch. And it's because if you look at Sebastian Fundora's fights, he literally is that vulnerable to being hit with the overhand right and the overhand left over top of his jab. And it's because of how tall he is, he has to throw his jab down towards his opponents who are way, way below his shoulders in a lot of cases. And that creates significant room for them to loop punches over top. And I think that's what's going to happen here. I think Tim Tszyu is going to be able to get on the inside. I think he's going to be able to exchange with Sebastian Fundora, who unfortunately likes to do that too much for his own good in this fight. And I think Tim Tszyu is actually going to be able to find the exact same opening that Brian Mendoza did, which is an overhand left or an overhand right. And I think that's how he's going to stop Sebastian Fundora in this one. So what can Fundora do to actually change that? Well, like I say, if he's going to have success in this fight, if he's going to upset the odds, he needs to make Tim Tszyu back up, number one. He needs to be absolutely spoiling and clinching at every opportunity when Tszyu gets on the inside. And he needs to keep him at range by using his uppercut, which is a weapon he's actually developed quite well because of the fact that a lot of his shorter opponents are able to get inside against his jab. He uses that uppercut as he steps back to counter them lunging in. So that's another thing he can do against Tim Tszyu. But the main thing, he needs to make Tim Tszyu back up behind pressure, and then when the distance gets closed, rather than exchanging on the inside, he needs to lean on him, he needs to clinch, he needs to push his head down, he needs to be a little bit dirty, quite frankly. And if he does that, Tim Tszyu is there to be hit as long as you don't try and exchange with him on the inside. But like I say, guys, the biggest thing for me is that Sebastian Fundora has a huge vulnerability to getting hit with those overhand rights and those overhand lefts up close in the clinches. And that is exactly what Tim Tszyu excels at doing. I think it's going to be a very entertaining fight while it lasts, but I only see one winner. That is going to be Tim Tszyu via KO. Guys, I think Tim Tszyu is an exceptional fighter. I think he has huge potential to go on and become one of the top names in the sport over the next few years. I'm extremely excited to watch this fight next Saturday. But let me know in the comments, what do you guys think? How's it going to play out? Is Tim Tszyu going to win like I expect him to? Or will Sebastian Fundora somehow spring the upset? Let me know in the comments, guys. Thank you as always for watching. I will catch you in the next video.